Hi, everyone, and welcome to October the 18th to the 24th and the Other World podcast. Hi there, Fee. How are you this week?
I'm good, thank you. I've had a really busy week, so it's I have to take a second and think about how do I feel this week. But yes, it's just been very busy, which has been really nice because the last 2 weeks before that kind of felt quite sort of solid and, like nothing was really moving. And this week I felt the energy is kind of ramped up a bit. It's been busy and there's been a lot going on, but it's been good, exciting, nice. How about you? How's it been for you?
Yeah, well, as all of our worlds opened up, I mean, here in Sydney, we all was after 4 months in lockdown, where finally Freedom Day came and we're all out in the world, which is kind of an interesting place to be back to. But I've just found this week's been so much about self-reflection and kind of going within and just lots of interesting the underworld of last week. I can really feel that, having been in my week. There was a lot of interesting things that came up that caused me to pause and take a look back and take a look in. So that was it for me.
Wow, it feels like we've both had opposite weeks then.
Yeah, no, but well, along with that, I mean, just day to day, I guess I've been busy, but I'm also wondering, where do I keep myself busy so that I don't stop and pause and look at maybe those places that need a bit more quietness rather than busyness.
Oh, I can so relate to that because I feel a lot of like this week, I feel like, I've gone straight back into my old pattern of being really busy all the time and just, doing things all the time. And as you were reflecting on how it's been for you, I immediately thought, well, I didn't even pause. I haven't given myself time to even have that breath or pause, apart from yesterday where I went for a quick walk. But it's interesting to reflect on this busyness that surfaced again, which has been a pattern of mine I've been trying to resolve for a very long time.
Which leads us on to this week. And it's not surprising that's coming up for you. And there's lots coming up for me because that seems to be in the stars. And last week, there was a little bit of a pause moment as all the planets, or a lot of the big planets, kind of went into this going from retrograde to moving forward. But because they're so big, often that causes almost like a reset or a stopping of energy before it starts up again. And this week, during this week, there's a few things that happen, but we've got another 2 planets moving forward. So definitely that forward feeling energy is picking up the pace. But first of all, I wanted to speak to the beginning of the week. And we have Chiron, who's our wounds, our old wounds, the wounds we bring in with us, is opposed to Mercury in Libra, and Mercury's moving direct. That's happening today. Actually, today is Jupiter and Mercury moving direct. So Jupiter expands things, and Mercury is about communication or knowledge or finding out. And it feels that when you've got these 2 Chiron and Aries in aspects to each other, there might be something that's being that your awareness is on. Maybe that for you, Fee, is about your busyness. And for me, lots of different things coming up. And that's our old wounds. That's Chiron. And with that planet of discovery, Mercury sitting in opposition. So where those things might be coming up for us to look at. There could be, I know that Mercury is sitting in Libra, so it could be an awareness of a pattern around relationships, or in how we put ourselves in relationship with other. So that could be where the wounds are showing or coming up to be looked at. And certainly once you've kind of maybe just found out where those 2 are, Then we have a full moon on the 21st. That's here in Sydney, so a little bit earlier if you're in the rest of the world. And it's a really, really strong full moon. We started with the new moon in Libra on the 6th. And again, the axis we're working with is the Aries Libra axis, which is the I am and we are, and where those two, where I meet you, and when I put you before me or me before you, and where we find a balance between those two places. So we started on the 6th with the new moon in Libra, and now we've come the full circle, and the full moon is now in Aries. So it's asking us to look more or put focus more on the me part of the equation. And I guess that's with the wound that may have come up on Monday, then how it plays out in the full moon, because the full moon is a time of completion. It's also, interestingly enough, in Aries, which is the beginning of a new cycle as well. So there's these endings in beginnings playing out at the same time. But it feels like, this full moon isn't just an ordinary full moon. It's taking place in Aries, and it's conjunct with the planet Eris. Now, I've spoken about Eris before, and she feels just so big at the moment. She was only discovered in 2005. So there's so much more awareness to find out about Eris, for us to sit in an awareness of what she is bringing. Because when a new planet is discovered, it's like that energy opens up. Or it may have already been there. There's a light shone on that energy. I'm fascinated with teachings out there about Eris, but also I have an awareness that I need to sit with her and discover where she sits within me. I've actually even organized a reading about where Eris sits on my chart, and she sits right on my ascendant, conjunct with Black Moon Lilith. So it's quite a powerful placement. And anybody who has strong placements in Aries, whether you have your sun, whether you have Chiron, Eris will be there somewhere. And if you've got lots happening in Aries, then you'll find Eris is probably quite significant in your chart at the moment. So anyway, we have Eris and Parvati, and Parvati is the goddess of sacred union. So I guess we could really say that place of balance within where the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine meet, or where your head and your heart sits, or your logic and your intuition. Those two poles, and where they come together and where we can find balance in them. That's Parvati. So you've got Eris, who, for me, the word that's really standing out for me with Eris is disruption. So that kind of disrupting energy, that earthquake energy, that's how I feel her. What is really becoming more aware to me is that there's a real positive side to that energy. It's not just destruction for the sake of destruction, or disruption for the sake of disruption. There's a reason. There's a place that Eris is wanting us to get to. And in order for us to get there, she needs to be quite strong about how she maybe throws out clues, and how we pick them up and follow them says a lot about where we are within ourselves. This may become a little bit clearer as I go further into it. So you've got the moon sitting on Eris and Parvati. All three of those places are ignited and together. And then across the other side of the zodiac wheel, you've got the sun, and the sun is conjunct with Medusa and Mars. So Medusa's, and they're sitting in the sign of relationship, the we. And Medusa is all about boundaries. Where are our boundaries? Are they too tight? Are they too loose? And you've got Mars there as the god of war, or the god of action. Mars is in Libra. That's the opposite of where Mars normally sits. So that's called being in his detriment. It's like not really comfortable there. It's the opposite of where he'd normally sit. And he's sitting with the sun and Medusa. He's almost like it feels like there's something being asked of Mars as well, almost being asked to stand up and stand with Medusa, because he's with Medusa, and to protect the boundaries. So there's a lot of stuff in this full moon. There's a lot of players, and as if that wasn't enough, this has been squared by Pluto. So Pluto is the god of the underworld. So no wonder there's a lot of stuff coming up. But with all of that, I'm just going to kind of siphon it down to, we're being asked to reframe, or to asked to put ourselves at the center of everything at the moment. There's been a lot of we energy. There's been a lot of the collective energy. And right now we're being asked to reframe it and put ourselves in the center and have a look at what's coming up within us. Have a look at what Aries might be shining a light on. And it's probably going to be on something really uncomfortable, some really uncomfortable habits, some really uncomfortable parts of yourself, some things that you just try and explain away, or want to push to the side, or want to get rid of. And I then look at the card that I chose, and it's Anima Mundi. And the words that struck me in this card is deny nothing, accept all. And it feels like there's parts of ourselves that we're really denying, or we're pretending to be something other than that thing because we don't like that part of ourselves. And right now, I think accepting all of us, and the reframing will happen when we accept what we consider maybe weak points or negative points, or things that we don't like. When we open to them and allow them in, the reframe will happen. And that's when I think what this card is also is an initiation into a new level of self. And that will come with acceptance of these places that feel uncomfortable, that we don't like, that may be coming up at the moment through that Chiron aspect with Mercury, old patterns, old habits. It's all coming around to this full moon. Everything's having a light, the sun's at the opposite side of the zodiac, of the wheel, shining a light on these emotional places within us for a reason. It's kind of time. We're at that completion, so that when we can turn the corner into the new astrological moon cycle, we can go forward with a lot more of a wholeness happening to us. I'm going to hand it over to you. There's a few more things, but that full moon feels really big this week.
Big energies. And I know there's a lot of synchronicity, although with a slightly different reflection, of course, through the numerology as well this week. But before I dive in, I really want to ask you a question about Aries, because I just wonder if she has become known to us now because we've reached a level of consciousness where we can work with the energy that she brings in. I'd love to know what your thoughts are around that.
Absolutely. I think all of these planets come into awareness when we're open enough to, and it's such a strong energy, and it's so needed, this place of disruption. And there's so much about Aries, and I'm really just discovering. There was just the other day, I just found an astrologer who knows so much, or has discovered so much about Aries. It just lit me up, because clearly she's very strong in my chart. And I think that her energy right now at this point in our evolution is, for me, the energy that counts, if that makes any sense. And in mythology, if we look at mythology, she's the sister of Mars in mythology, and both Mars rules Aries and Eris is sitting in Aries. That's that, that place of kind of war, of action. What's coming up for me is around anger and trying to reframe that in some way, because I have a very strong Aries, and I've got a lot of that energy, and it's reframing around that place that's happening within me. But Eris, just to give you a little bit of her mythology, because I think it really counts, she was not invited to a wedding, and because I don't think she was a particularly popular character, being that kind of like warring disruption energy. So she threw an apple into this wedding, and 3 goddesses, I kind of spoke about this a little bit the other week, 3 goddesses all went to die. I think when she threw it, she threw it for the fairest. And 3 goddesses went for it because they wanted to be the fairest. So there was this females fighting over who was more beautiful, I guess. So there's this, it's almost like she brings out the ugly side so that we can see it. She's not the ugly side. She's the one who brings out and for us to look at. She's the mirror for us to look at those places in ourselves. And there's something around us all right now, around what needs reframing. I think that's the best word for right now. What do we need to reframe? Where are we just going in our ordinary patterns? Sorry, Fee, that felt like such a big question. I'm just diving into this Eris place because she feels so huge right now. She's sitting sort of smack bang in the center of everything at the moment.
Well, I think that's why I was guided to ask about her, because it feels like there's a lot there that sits underneath the surface, and she just feels very relevant for this truth energy that we're sitting in and what we're being asked to look at the moment. So, maybe that's a podcast on its own. We'll have to dive into that one a bit more. I'm sure you're going to be bringing her in more and more as we progress. By the sounds of it, she's here very consciously at this moment, so she's going to want to be heard.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so looking at this really from a numerological perspective, we are currently transitioning through week 42 of 2021. So in numerology, this is a 6-week, which also encompasses the archetypes of the 2 and the 4 energies. So 2, 4, and 6 really hold a strong relationship with each other because they're all even numbers. And we will certainly, I think, see them play out this week ahead. So if we think of 2 as the intuitive, loving and relationship-centered energy, and 4 is more about loyalty and systems, and it's very hardworking, and 6 is nurturing, it's a visionary, and it's about responsibility. So these are all outwardly focused numbers that guide you to focus, I would say, on the world around you. So it's interesting that you're bringing in this energy of diving in and thinking about ourselves and the place that we sit with around us, and the numbers are bringing us out to look at that from our own perspective. So these numbers really bring you into a deeper connection with others and with the world itself. And when these numbers come together in this way, they kind of create a desire to help other people to feel safe, to feel happy, to feel secure. They bring that energy in. So this may guide you this week into thinking about your community and how you can come together in a more conscious way to create changes in the community itself. But these are doing numbers, so they inspire you to take action, particularly in group dynamics, to achieve a common goal. So something that you're all working towards. And we are all really evolving at this time out of the, I would say, the information age and into the age of truth. I mean, we're very firmly sitting in that age at the moment. We're all being guided to seek out our own truth in a really conscious way, so that we can bring that into the collective and move forwards in a new balanced way. And 6, that the energy of this week is the number of balance and responsibility and also problem solving. So this energy can really inspire you to, first of all, create that inner balance by stepping into your power and the responsibility that you hold around your own truth, and then bringing that out into the world to resolve the issues that we are all facing at this time. So as we continue to journey through this time of truth, you are facing both balance and extremes at this time. You know, we're in this energy of these two opposing parts of self, these two opposing things that are sitting in our consciousness around us. And this week is therefore going to bring in support to help you to keep finding balance within the ever-changing chaos of the world around you. So I would really view this energy as an opportunity to see just how potent your energy is when you face what is surfacing in each moment, and then take steps to rebalance and come back into your place of inner peace. So October is also a 6-month in a 5-year. And because we're nearing the end of the year, the numerology at this time really focuses your attention on the energy that we're going to be working with next year, which is also going to be 6 energy. So 5 is the energy of change, and that's what we're currently really sitting in. And as we move towards the new year, it feels like this energy is ramping up. Change isn't slowing down. If anything, it's becoming more rapid. And so you are going to face what needs to change in your life over the next few months as we move towards the end of the year. And this definitely speaks to everything that you brought through, I think, Denny, for this week ahead, but also I feel for the next few months, because next year you're really moving into the 6 energy, which is where you adjust. It's a time of adjustment to the changes and finding a new place of balance. And so we're really being guided to create those changes before the year ends. So this is a week really when you get a preview of what next year can feel like. And that's why you will be asked to constantly find your place of balance within yourself throughout this week coming. But we're also working with the influences of the 2 archetype this week. And this brings you back into the awareness of the underlying influences of, well, the millennium that we're in, the 10-year cycle that we're sitting in of the 2020s, and of course the year that we're moving into, which is 2022, which is going to be very focused on 2 energy, and 2 is the number of the feminine. And so the more that we connect with that energy and feel supported by her, the easier it is to release the more masculine influences of our previous millennium. You know, we're shifting more and more into that energy and finding our balance within that. So whilst you may be feeling a little bit disconnected at the moment, or in conflict, or even segregated in some ways, I know that's definitely going on for us here in Australia, this is all necessary to bring us back into the reconnection that we're going to have, which is the 2 energy. And the 2 energy this week is supporting us in that way. It really helps us to feel that reconnection is just around the corner. We're heading towards that. That's what all this change, all of this truth energy is bringing up for us at the moment, so that we can reconnect together in a new and more positive way. So that was the numbers for the week. The card that I drew was this one, which I know you can see the picture, which is probably all you need to see. And this card is the 4 of Sea. And this, it really seemed to speak to me to the energy that we're sitting in. Visually, it seems to represent the dark and the light, the journey through the darkness into the light. It mentions restlessness and apathy. And I know that I've been feeling that energy as that sort of bleh energy that we were talking about last week. And we don't really have a language to wrap round this energy that we've been sitting in, because we haven't experienced anything like this before. You know, this constant change, this constant movement, this constant things erupting. We've never experienced it like this before in any way. But it also, I feel, shows that by sitting in this place, by, you know, going into the underworld, we find the light. By facing it, as I mentioned earlier on, we find our way through it. So the light is also showing us the way through the darkness, helping you to find that new place from which I guess we can all grow in the way that we need to. So I feel like it's a really positive, beautiful card for what is going to be, I think, quite a chaotic week as we're constantly brought into finding that place of balance within ourselves as we address our truth and we face what we're being shown.
Oh,
We're
wow.
laughing now, but I don't know who it will be next week.
Well, full moon weeks are always a bit like that, aren't they?
Yeah.
And this one's a huge one. Gosh, next year, the two being so prominent and it being the number of the divine feminine, it's when you were speaking about that, I thought about the truth conversation that we had last week with Anik. And I kind of just wanted to ask you about how that sat for you, because she was quite a strong feminist, and even using the word feminist these days sounds so it just brings up things for me. And what I've realized is that there was a discomfort in a lot of what she was saying from that feminist point of view, because there's so much of me that wants to sit in this balancing of masculine and feminine, and yet it also rang very true to Aries, and where Aries is sitting, asking us to go to those uncomfortable places. And it strikes me that maybe the reframing is that there is some stuff that the feminine need to really own and be with in order for things to shift. I'm kind of interested where all that kind of sat for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you, I felt very uncomfortable about some of the things that Anik spoke to, but I was so well, impressed isn't the right word, but I was so enthralled by what she was saying and what she was speaking to, and it triggered me in a few different places, that conversation around you know, how she views the feminine and the masculine, or what she spoke to in that conversation. And I appreciate that it was a small conversation around a very big topic, but yes, it brought up a few questions for me around where I sit with it, and I really wanted to dive into that more. And then I went into my week of busyness and haven't had the time to do that. But my intention is to listen to the podcast and over the weekend when I've got a bit more space, and I want to really sit with some of the things that she brought into those conversations, because I felt that there was depth to which we could go with those conversations that we couldn't reach in the time that we had available to us.
Yeah, there's such a lot of respect for women that have walked that path and those years and the groundwork that's been put in, that we now are able to sit in this place. So there is just so much respect for that. And also, like you say, really reflecting where we still need that strong energy, that strong female, feminine energy, even more, to make the changes that's needed.
Absolutely. I love that how you framed that there, because yes, they have been the trailblazers that have led the way for us as women to step more into our power, and for that we should be eternally grateful for the path that they've walked, because that was never an easy path. But it feels to me, my personal perspective, that I think where one of my triggers sat with this was that I feel like there's so many men there at the moment that are in need of or are being led through through the feminine into this place where they really want to come into a different way of interacting now. And I felt that that was maybe either sidelined or maybe pushed away. I don't know. I haven't really thought too much about it yet. I might not be using the right words in this conversation, but yeah, I just feel like there was a piece there that I wanted to bring in. I wanted to explore with Anik and see where that conversation went.
Well, that's an interesting place too, because the men that are doing the work, in a way, they're expanding their feminine. And it is diving into that side of themselves that's bringing balance within them as well. And then there is this sense, particularly upon us opening up, of the busyness and the world starting up again, and this idea that everyone's got to get back into the machine. And that is, I think, where the feminine energy is really needed. We can't go back. There is no going back, no matter how much the machine wants us to go back in order to get back to the way it was, because that's safe. Going forward in a new way is unknown, and the unknown is always uncomfortable, but we have to. So yeah, I can also see that place of, that's kind of the old patriarchal ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much that came out of that conversation to explore, and I think we said maybe even on the podcast that we'd love to have Anik back and maybe explore some of those conversations with her. I think that would be beautiful.
And finding other feminine thought leaders in that space as well. I'd love to dive into that. I also just wanted to bring up, before we go, around the collective, for anyone that has that joined us for the 2 circles that we've had. We're in the creation phase of what the collective will be. So just be patient with us. It'll all be birthed now that Mercury's come out of retrograde. Hopefully it'll happen a little bit quicker now. But yes, it's all happening. We are creating it at the moment.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to mention, because we've kind of just left everyone hanging. But yes, we are getting there with that, and it has been a beautiful process of actually just sitting in our feminine energy and working with it in the way that has felt so intuitive and so right. And we will get there, I'm sure, as the energy is shifting. I mean, we can both feel that energy shifting now. Which is moving us into action, I think, around it too. But I'd love to share the message from the Akashic Records that I got this week, which was that kind of interesting because it was a little bit out of left field, which I loved, because it's always nice to have something a bit different. And sometimes it seems to tie in nicely with what we're speaking to, and then other times it's completely different. And today is one of those times when it's completely different. So when I sat in the Akasha this morning to ask for reflection on the week ahead, this is what I was given. So as timelines continue to shift, you are beginning to lose all sense of Chronos time as you move more naturally into Kairos time. Kairos is circular, with neither beginning or end, and whilst both are still necessary in the world that you live in, your soul resides in Kairos time. You are in a process of unification. You are beginning to understand the concept of different timelines and how you can integrate and work with both. The only limitation between these 2 concepts is held in your own mind. You are developing the ability to move from one to the other when it suits you best. Chronos is the time of order, clocks and calendars, and Kairos is the time of freedom and no time. You can embody either. It is a choice. So it was an interesting one.
I love that. And actually, it feels really relevant to me. Saturn is often known as the planet of time, or the father of time, and you know, as also kind of framed in that patriarchal way, so that is being reframed with the Uranus square with Saturn. I love that. And I also love the idea of us reframing time.
Yeah, and actually
So
I haven't
interesting.
thought of them in that way before, but maybe you can reflect on them as masculine and feminine in the way that they work too, you know. The Chronos time is very structured, and you know, and Kairos time is very free flowing. So it's, yeah, interesting to see them in that way.
Thank you for that, Fee.
You're welcome.
And I think that's it for this week.
Yeah.
Next week's the last week in October. It seems to come so
God.
quickly.
It's gone so quick. Well, enjoy the week ahead, and we'll see you next week.